In the beginning of this year, 2024, a friend of mine played NieR Replicant for the first time. When she finished it, she quickly told me that I should play it as well, for it was a great game with an emotional story. Since I don't have a good PC or console to play the game, I went for the alternative, watch gameplay on YouTube, which is what I usually do anyway with video games that interest me, because once again, I can't really play them, so I just watch gameplay, and I really like it, I think it's fun. So, after finishing the first run, I was already in shambles for NieR, Kaine, and Emil, and because of the story in general. I watched ending A, but I knew there were more endings, so I did what I thought was right. Searched a video with all the endings, so I could see them. That was my first mistake. You see, you're not intended to only watch the other endings. It is essential to do more runs of the game to get the other endings. But since I was only watching gameplay, and I didn't know this was a thing, I accidentally skipped all of that and went straight for the endings. And this resulted in something very interesting. Endings C and D happen at the same time after you get all 33 weapons and finish the third run of the game. You are then faced with a choice. Save NieR or save Kaine. With no context of a second run, remember this. Of course, I first was shooketh and extremely sad that, because this game left me in tears, shambles, etc. But I was 100% sure I would choose to save NieR, going for ending C. So I went to message my friend, tell her that I watched the other endings, and she had previously said to me she had chosen ending D, in which you save Kaine. So I questioned her. To me, the obvious choice was ending C. She said absolutely not, that saving Kaine was the best choice and that she could not possibly let her die, while I was arguing that there was no way in hell that I would let poor NieR die, for he must be protected at all costs. This went on for a couple of minutes until she started saying some stuff about Kaine's backstory. And that's when I got confused because I hadn't seen any backstory. Upon talking to her, I realized my mistake, that I had only seen the ending and not the entire run for ending C and D, which, as you probably know, contains additional cutscenes and dialogues that enrich the story more. I went back to YouTube and watched the full run of the ending C and D, and only then did I realize why the choice to save Kaine was so easy for my friend. After being revealed at the end of the first run of the game that the shades we've been killing all along were the actual human beings, we simply cannot see NieR the same way as we did before, and the game makes sure that we realize that. It forces you to play the game again and to hear the same dialogue as before, but with that single piece of information, everything changes.
What in the... I never realized shades were capable of rational thought.
I don't care if they can tap dance and play the fiddle. I just want to kill them without all this hassle.
We seem to be surrounded by a mob of helpless puppies.
Just kick them aside. Die, you little bastards!
Calm yourself. Haste will only lead you to making an ill-timed mistake. An unstable heart is the worst armor one can have.
No time for that, Vice. I gotta get to Yona. Look, it doesn't matter what a shade is or isn't thinking. All that matters is that we kill every last one of them.
NieR is not just a lovable and strong protagonist that wants to save his sister. He's a murderer. We are forced to go back in time before the vital information was revealed by the twins to NieR, but the player still knows. We know, and we always will, in any subsequent runs, that those shades are humans. It's very cruel. The game forces you to look at the protagonist who you have rooted for so long, but now you have no choice but to feel conflicted by his actions. He doesn't change. His dialogue is the same as in that very first run where you were rooting so much for him, and maybe that's why you hurt so bad. But, as you know, I haven't really played the game. I watched gameplay. But my friend did play. She was NieR, and she made him do everything the same as before. Not only because she had no choice if she wanted to progress in the game, but because you can't change what has already happened. That first run up until the ending is what happened in the story. That's why we have no choice in a second or third time. And to make it more painful, the game makes sure that the player knows what is going on, but that NieR doesn't. He can't know, not until the very end. The game dehumanizes NieR bit by bit with every new playthrough. Every time you hear him saying he will kill every shade, even after Emil wonders, what if the shades have consciousness? In the first run, you don't pay that much attention to it, but after several times and knowing what you, and only you know, makes it that much harder to sympathize with NieR. I mean, we do sympathize with him, but we cannot in good conscience support his actions anymore. He's killing his own humanity every time he kills a shade and doesn't stop to think about it. And you, the player, is the one doing this. That's why ending D was an easy choice for my friend. In the first playthrough, NieR was a determined protagonist. In the second and third, an obsessed killer. First, his goal was to save his sister. Now his goal is to kill every shade because he sees that as the only way to save his sister. It's heartbreaking. I think it's fair to see how this changes the shonen protagonist stereotype. I don't know if NieR Replicant can be considered a shonen or not. To give a quick description of what shonen is, if you're not familiar with, shonen, which means boy or youth in Japanese, typically refers to manga or anime aimed at a young male audience. These works often feature male protagonists embarking on an action-packed adventure, battles, or quests set in a fantastical or sci-fi settings. Honestly, there are a lot of shonen animes out there. Most of them do have male protagonists, and there is also another characteristic that I think is very interesting. Shonen usually has a very determined protagonist that has a specific goal and will go to great lengths to achieve that. They are usually perceived as determined, brave, and strong. You follow them as they face hardships and root for them to achieve their goal. NieR subverts that. He has all those qualities, but once you realize the implications of him achieving his goal, the end of humanity, you just can't root for him anymore. In our conversations, we also talked about NieR as a character, as his own character. NieR ends up being a really tragic protagonist since the very beginning. Yes, this is pretty obvious, but there are some sides of him that we don't really talk about. His entire life has been dedicated to his sister, Yona, to find a cure for her and to protect her. That's a mission that Replicant NieR and human NieR have in common, Yona. Since the start, he has been brother, father, and mother, taking care and make sure she is safe. He rarely cares about his own well-being. Everything he does is for Yona. You could also argue that without speaking or caring too much about himself, it's easier for the player to use NieR as a stand-in and immerse in the story. I mean, his name isn't even NieR, right? It can be whatever you want. It is quite sad that the majority of his personality and purpose in life are not about himself. That's why, without seeing Kaine and Emil's backstory, I chose ending C. He fought so long for Yona, forgetting about himself in the process, that I couldn't imagine separating those two in the end. And when you do separate them in ending D, you have to literally erase NieR out of existence. In subsequent runs, you can't use the same name anymore. You can't use the name you gave NieR when you deleted the files, because that person doesn't exist. I was not ready to separate the siblings, not after everything that NieR went through. But after seeing the other runs and getting more information, I couldn't help but agree with my friend as well, due to NieR's obsession and everything already mentioned. Truly, in the end, it is a tragic game with tragic characters. The endings, much like the game, are not black and white. They are happy now, they did it, or oh no, they failed and lost everything. It's nuanced, everything. Even when you win, you actually don't. Not entirely. This game is a masterpiece. If you haven't, please play the game. It's an experience that everyone deserves to have.